Hello, YouTube. Otaku Mom here. So this is going to be my review of the eighth episode series, The Boys, which is currently running on Amazon Prime. So I'm gonna just take my glasses off for this one. So if you're not familiar with what The Boys are, it is a comic book series that was created by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson, starting in 2007. It ran until 2012. History behind the comics is that it was under one. It was under Wildfire originally, which I believe was the imprint under Warner Brothers and DC Comics. And for whatever reason, I guess it got a little too brutal, so they dropped it, but another company ended up picking up, so I was able to continue and finish up. So if you're not familiar with what The Boys are, it takes place in a world where superheroes are real, and they can be real big jerks in this world, and they've also has a lot of debauchery and all kinds of nasty behavior. And the boys are basically are in the comic book anyway. They're an arm of the CIA, where their job is basically to keep them in check. Now, at the time that when the comic starts out, you have the character of Huey, also known as Wee Huey, who has just lost his girlfriend because because of a superhero named A Train, like Flash type characters, like a super speed, accidentally threw a villain through her while she was with Huey's girlfriend, while she was with Huey, and accidentally killed her. So that's how Huey gets recruited as a point of getting revenge on these superheroes. In his case, so he ends up becoming kind of our point of the point of narration. Him and the character of Starlight, who is this sort of naive Christian evangelical hero who first joins the main superhero team / quote unquote villains of the story, the Seven, who ends up joining that team thinking she's going to be doing good and all that, and then discovers it's not what she thought it was. So if you've never read the comic, warning: there's a lot of mature material in it. There's a lot of violence, gore, sex, language, drugs, all kinds of things. So whatever you have, it's in there. So with that being said, the comic was considered unadaptable, actually, for the longest time because of how rough it gets. So they put up adapting it for the longest time, but now that Ennis's other comic book adaptation, which was also a series, Preacher, became such a huge success, they decided to take another go at The Boys. And from the 8 episodes I saw, and it's only 8 episodes this first season, so we will see what happens in the next season, which this next season is coming. It is coming. It looks like from the 8 episodes I saw, that it looks like they might have toned it down a little bit and actually updated it to make changes to suit more of a more television audience, for a more screen audience, and I like what they did with it. They did a really good job with this series. So the boys themselves are, along with Huey. Let me bring up the cast list here. I'm not going to remember everybody's names here because a lot of the actors I never even actually heard of. So we can get this up here. So we get them up here. So I gotta put my glasses back on again so I can read it. Okay, so you have Carl Urban, who plays Billy Butcher, who's the leader of the boys uh, of the group. His storyline is that his wife has been missing for the past 8 years, and and he thinks that Homelander's responsible. Now, Homelander's the leader of the Seven, which we'll get to in a bit. Um, he's very brutal. He's very tough. He takes no punches. And he's the one that mainly recruits Huey into the boys. Um, Jack Quaid plays Huey Campbell in this series, and so he's kind of somewhat naive about the whole thing and going into it, and so he doesn't think anything of it. Going into it, who else? You got Laz Alonso playing Mother's Milk, who is because he had worked with because his character Mother's Milk worked with Billy Butcher in the past. He is very reluctant about getting back into it again. So is the character of Frenchie, played by Tomer Capon. So he's called Frenchie because he's the French member of the boys. He speaks French. He's got the accent and all that. And then you have the character of Kimiko, or the female of the species. That's her actual name of the comic book, is the female of the species. For the show, they gave her the name Kimiko, and kind of gave her a little bit of a different backstory from the comics. She is played by Karen Fukuhara. There we go. I'm having a hard time reading it from here. So her character is mute, but she's also very superpowered, and she has a healing factor, not unlike Wolverine. And and then you have the Seven. So you have Homelander, who's the leader, who's sort of like the Superman, Captain America type character. He's played by Anthony Starr, and he's also very psychotic. He's very psychotic and just pulls no punches. Even though they try to rein him in to say he's not for vengeance, that's not his brand, as it were, for this company. He pretty much will go for vengeance, and it has no qualms about killing people on his watch. Then you have Starlight, who's played by Erin Moriarty. She's sort of the voice, the naive, just getting into it character on the Seven side of it. And she's very naive. She's an evangelical Christian. She was plucked from Ohio and was chosen to be part of this group. But very quickly learns that they're not who they are. They're not who they say they are, and they're very hypocritical. And that, and discovers that a lot of it is not really about really actually saving people, but doing personal appearances and all that, and is just not up with this lifestyle very quickly. You have Dominique McElligott, who plays McElligott, yeah. Sorry, my glasses are kind of blurry. Dominique McElligott, who plays Queen Maeve. She is sort of the Wonder Woman character of it, and her character is very much closeted. Jesse Usher, who plays A-Train, who is the Flash equivalent, and he's the one who accidentally kills Huey's girlfriend. Chase Crawford, who plays the Deep, who is the Aquaman equivalent to the story, and his character is just hysterical because of the fact that he's very pathetic, and in his attempts to become more relevant. And it's one of those things where his character really cares about what goes on in the seas and saving his animal friends in the seas, but his attempts to try to save his friends just end up hysterical, just end up really funny. And then there's Nathan Mitchell's Black Noir, who in this series you don't learn a lot about. He's not in the show that much. And I have a feeling that, I don't know whether they'll bring it up in season 2, if they'll bring it up at another time, or whatever. But his character's not in it much. He's Black Noir. and then the last member, uh, then the last member is translucent, um, who can turn himself invisible. He's not in it for very long, and watch the show, you'll find out why he's not in it very long. Um, but basically, they all do a really good job with their characters. The show has something to say about hero worship in the world of where we live. Where we live in a, I mean, we live in a world right now where the top movies right now that are at the box office are more or less all superhero films. Avengers Endgame, huge box office hit. Just surpassed Avatar for highest grossing movie of all time. Spider-Man: Far From Home just came out earlier this year. We had Captain Marvel. We've got what are coming out later this year? We've got a whole bunch on the line. Marvel at Comic-Con just did this whole presentation of what's going to be coming out for the Marvel line as to the movies, because they announced that Blade's coming out. They announced that Thor: Love and Thunder is coming out. Black Widow's coming out. All these different movies are coming out this year, and really got the audience pumped up as to what stories are going to be presented and whatnot. So we kind of live in a world now where a lot of the movies that we watch now are kind of present this whole world of sort of superhero worship and looking at heroes as if looking for them to save us instead of trying to save ourselves, which is a lot of the point that The Boys tries to get across a lot of the times. I think some of the best acting in this series comes from a character who's not a Boys or a Seven character, but actually from Elizabeth Shue. She plays the Stillwell character, who I guess in the comics was a male character. They gender bended it for a female character. So they made Stillwell a single mom. She has a baby, and she's in a relationship with Homelander, and which unfortunately brings some unintended consequences on her. By the end of the season, which watch it. I'm telling you people to watch it if you can stomach it, which I'll get into in a little bit. But her character is very ruthless. She's very focused on making sure everybody's on brand, that everybody's following what they should be doing, and that everybody is and everything is happening the way it should, and to make sure everything's a well-oiled machine within this company. And her character has both the tender side when it comes to her son and the ruthless side when it comes to protecting the brand of this company, International, which is really the main protagonist of this story. So I'm just gonna take a sip of my tea here, and anyway, because we're on the internet, we have to have tea somehow. But anyway, so Elizabeth Shue's character is really good in here. She did a really good job with this character, showing how this character is both vulnerable and strong. So she's this very complex character, and you have the Starlight character, who is, I think, because of the need to update the character in the time of Me Too, she actually comes off a lot stronger in this than she would in the comics, because in the comics she but I guess her character also changed in the comics too. She became stronger in the comics as she got more sick of this lifestyle. But in this, it's a quicker change around, I think, because in the show, they changed her storyline a little bit, because they changed it quite a bit, because in the comics, she finds that it's revealed that she was brought in as a she was basically just brought into the Seven to be a punching bag for the rest of the group before they can bring in a real hero. And so she finds this out and is not very happy about it. And then you have, but in the show, it kind of reflects this whole Me Too movement. In that you have something that happens to her similar to what happened to her in the comics, except it didn't involve 3 superheroes; it just involved one, and not the one that was in the comics that did this to her, and so she ends up doing what most people do. She puts it out there to the world in a speech without meaning to, and it ends up blowing up and becoming this whole big Me Too thing, and and from that she ends up becoming a stronger character over that. Now the relationship between her and Huey could be a little stronger, but then again, they're both kind of basing their relationship on well, at least Huey is. He doesn't want to tell her. He finds out that she's Starlight, and he doesn't want to tell her what he's actually doing for work right now, and so it starts out as this. It starts out as he's trying to get information out of her, but he actually falls in love with her, and she falls in love with him, and they're strong in their relationship. Is not too bad. I mean, somebody described it as weak. I wouldn't say it as weak per se in this case. I would probably describe it as sort of a necessary link so that we get both sides of it, and that both sides get either side, and they can be very cute. They can be very cute together because you have these two characters who are naive to either side of their, either side of their, either side of their regarded aspects of the groups that they work with, because they're both kind of new at their job, and they somehow getting together over that. And I shouldn't say over that. I should despite that. And so they decide to go on with this relationship and go from there. And both Jack Quaid and Erin Moriarty, they did really good jobs with their characters. Everybody did an excellent job with this. Carl Urban, who plays Billy Butcher, who is this really brutal character. He did an excellent job with this character. You really are scared of him. You really are scared of what he can do, what he can get away with. And I think one of my other favorite characters in this one. Anthony Starr as a Homelander. Oh my lord. You could look at him as again another very scary character, another very brutal character, and he's basically what happens if Superman didn't have a good support system growing up. So he ends up being this really strong. He ends up being this really psychotic and needy character, and Anthony Starr really does a really good job of portraying this guy and showing these sides to him that are just absolutely brutal. So as far as the content of as going into the content of the show. Definitely not for the kids. I actually had to watch. I watched this one over the past 2 days, either on my tablet or so that my son didn't see what was on the screen, or I waited until my son went to bed to watch 3 episodes. And I managed to get through it yesterday and today. And this show, as far as everything, is really brutal. It is not for the kids. It gets very violent. There's a lot of sexual situations in this show. Now, having not read the comic, but just hearing about it, I think they might have actually toned it down a little bit in order to adapt it for Amazon, in order to adapt it for this TV series, because a lot of it could be because the original narrative in the comics was from 2007 in regards to Starlight. I know they definitely toned down Starlight's story a little bit. The original character from the original Starlight arc, I think, is a little more brutal than what they showed in the comic, and what they showed in the TV series, I should say. Because I think because of the fact that the comic was released in 2007. Me Too, the whole Me Too movement was started last year, I want to say. Yeah, it was like last year. Was it last year? No, a couple years ago. Back in 2017. And with that whole Me Too movement, women are more likely to speak out about sexual assault and that kind of behavior. And because of that, I think because of that, they changed her storyline for the better from what was in the comics, and just to reflect that, and what was I trying to say? But anyway, so the character is the storyline has been toned down because the creator Garth Ennis, who also worked on the show, said he didn't want to do shocking for shocking's sake, because I think that's what he probably felt like a lot of what The Boys was, is shock for shock's sake. So I guess he toned it down a little bit. I mean, it's still a lot of scenes in here just like shocking, but they don't feel like they're unnecessary. In the course of the series, and it's just really well done. And so if you're not squeamish about violence and language and whatnot, definitely check this one out. The Boys, I highly recommend, as long as you're not squeamish. So definitely not one for the kids. So if you're gonna watch it, take the kids out of the room and just enjoy it on your own. Okay, so this is Otaka Mom signing out, and have a good day. Bye.